I'm not perfect, God, neither are you. Tell these salty motherfuckers to tell the truth. Tell politicians to give up the rooms. Tell silent voters to stand up to the booth.
God, it's me. Can you hear my plea? Feeling like I'm lost in this world, can't you see? Demons creeping in, trying to take control of me. But I'm just trying to find the light, trying to break free. I'm not perfect, God, neither are you. But why you keep forgetting me? What did I do? Trying to have a convo, but you starting to preach. Feeling like I'm on a leash. Can't find no peace, find no peace. Living in hell, can't you hear my plea? I'm suffocating, can't you see? Why you let these false prophets roam free? While the real ones suffer, can't you see? I'm not perfect, God, neither are you. Why you keep targeting me? What did I do? Trying to have a convo, but you starting to preach. Feel like I'm on a leash, can't find no peace.
Hardest battles, strongest soldiers, greatest burden, broadest shoulders, pushing up just like these boulders. This conflict like it's water, so this mercy, take my chalice, seeking grace through all this malice. All of these salty motherfuckers could give up.
Politics and sinners, they all the same. Got me stuck in this endless game. But I won't give up, won't play the role. Gotta do what's best
for my soul.
I'm not perfect, God. Neither are you. Tell these salty motherfuckers to tell the truth. Tell these politicians to give up the room. Tell silent voters to stand up to the booth. Living wild but truthfully free. God keep on watching over me. Take my pleas and keep the receipts. I just want all of humanity to be free.
Good morning, 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 and welcome back to the Urban Conservative Podcast. And today I'm going to be talking about Minnesota mayhem, corruption, collapse, and the clock ticking on the shutdown. Also, I got a guest today. I got Robert Johnson, CrazyCorpsman. That's what he goes by on Twitter. But before all that being said, man, I got some special independent music and Hatred, Don Tripp. And with that said, I'll be right back.
The devil you know. Yeah. I say the devil you know. It's better than the devil you don't. Yeah. Wake 'em up. Yeah. I fell asleep counting money, now I'm waking up with paper cuts. Yeah. Why I got so many foes? I'm the kind of guy they hate to love, but haters love. And chances are they mad cause they don't make enough. But I am not the guy to try to take it from. High school I was sacking up, so I ain't make the prom. I got impatient waiting for my day to come. I got up and got it popping on them like a paper gun. Yeah. You know I'm all about my capital. Solo with my Lolo, a P90 is my passenger. Yeah, I got the mop, you make a mess, then I'm a janitor. Rapid fire while protecting mine from you scavengers. Don't show it till you blow it if you really bout it. I hear it in your songs, but I highly doubt it. I say what I want, fuck how you feel about it. I keep killers in my circle and I feel surrounded. Afraid of ice for my babies, I will scale a mountain. If you still around when I come down, maybe I'll tell you about it. Can't keep taking shit for granted if you care about it. And no matter what, you can't please everybody. Yeah, you can't please everybody, tell me about it. Only reason I'm alive is cause hell is crowded. Heart colder than a snow day. If I go to hell, the devil gotta relocate. We was so broke, we ain't have nothing we could donate. I started flipping pounds like Circus Soleil. Say I'm flipping like I came with a roll cage. Now these bitches swear I'm they soulmate. Yeah. I still squeeze on a nigga like Colgate, and talk is too cheap to negotiate. Yeah, 100 years before they set some of my niggas free. They shut so many doors in our face, we start selling keys. I can't take your word for it, niggas selling dreams. Lying to they bitch, but tell the prosecutors everything. lying to your bitch, tell her. Wake 'em up. Yeah. I fell asleep counting money, now I'm waking up with paper cuts. Yeah. Why I got so many foes? I'm the kind of guy they hate to love. But hate is love. Yeah. I'm the kind of guy they hate to love. But hate is love. Yeah. Long little pill.
Hey, good morning. Who's that in the background? Oh, whoops, that is me. That's my phone. Whoops. Good morning. Like I said, I have a special guest. I shouldn't say special because that's my boy. That's my brother from another mother. You know what I'm saying? So it shouldn't be, shocking or anything like that. So I want to say everybody hello to CrazyCorpsman, aka Robert Johnson. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I was just waiting, trying to be respectful,
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah, so I'm just a guy, dude, that looks at things. That's it, and tries to ask why or how did this happen, and then go from there. You know what I mean? Let the facts lead, because that's just the way I try to do. And the stuff that we've been uncovering, the community sort of asked us to, because people were scared to say anything, but they're like, hey, we want a voice in our community, and not just what's been going on, because what's been going on in a lot of communities, even in rural areas, is there's a certain group that you have to get the approval of to do anything, even run for office and anything in the town.
Right.
And that works its way up to the state level, and it should be representative of the people, for the people, by the people, even if you totally disagree with me.
Right.
And you want a voice, I'm going to fight for you to have a voice over the corporations and special interests. So if you call me a Nazi, though, I'm going to call you a commie. I still will fight for your rights. But hey, you know what I mean? I think everybody has rights, and the Constitution needs to be applied for all with equal application and then equal protections as well. That's it. We're not there yet. I think we can get there, but I think
that's the whole thing, and I played that song by Don Tripp this morning, Hatred, for a reason, because everybody loves the hate. But see, I turn that hatred into love. You know what I'm saying? Because I look at that shit as, because I'll tell you right now, I got people that hate me and love me. You know what I'm saying? And I see more probably the hatred on Facebook and more of the love on Twitter. And that, to me, it shows what kind of, because Twitter to me, and X, or whatever, I shouldn't call it Twitter, but X, is more conservative Republicans. And then I know on Facebook, I have more of the leftists, more of the, idiotic people that really just, they want to see it because they see it, but then they really don't see it. And I'm going to help them, and I know around the way that, you, Marcus, Marvina, even though I disagree with him at times, Jonathan Mason, Reverend Tim Christopher, there's even I know that's Minneapolis right there, but there's people in the rural area. There's TC, there's West Lund, there's Pamela Lang and Wabasha. You know what I'm saying? Even though I've been kind of going at her lately, I'll say Pam Altendorf too. You know what I'm saying? It's not that I hate her, or dislike her, but I've sat in them rooms, right? Especially when I presented 2 years ago in 2023 about, all the fraud and the waste, and you helped me with that. We did a whole presentation, and I met them at the state capitol, but I understood of Pam was trying to help, she would, because I, agree with a lot of things I shouldn't say agree, but when it came to these committee hearings.
That's the thing, is she's open to facts. That's the reason why she did the climate modification bill. People don't remember in 99 we repealed a bill that was a state bill that authorized the regulation of it.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that was done in the 80s, saying we're going to regulate it within the state. Not saying it's not going to happen, but we have to regulate it. They repealed the regulation in 99. So people wanted to act like she was crazy, and I've showed her the stuff. No, this is, we used to regulate it and that. And so she's open to some alternative views,
right.
Just, I understand she also has to work within.
within the political party.
Yeah.
You know what? I understand that too. But you know, there's only a certain point when to me, because I feel like we're in this weird kind of place because people would rather look the other way, even though they knew it was going on. They preferred to look the other way because it was more comfortable. It was more non-confrontational. Because I'll tell you right now, the past, this is the craziest thing, and I'm sure because of your skin color, no, they're not fucking with you. They're not fucking with Paul Bloom. They're not fucking with Deanna.
I've told them to. I've literally said, hey, if you want to hate somebody, hate this guy. I don't care.
You're white.
You know what? I'm doing this no matter what, because I've been told by the people. When I was working on Marvin's case, I just said to have people come up to me and they'd start to talk to me out there on the street, dude. And they'd be like, hey, this is going on and we want this to stop, you know?
Right.
And they're scared to talk and like, okay, no problem. I'll help expose it. And that's what I've been doing, man. Like, and I've talked to people on my CIA stuff from the 90s and that remember it. And they used to work in City Hall, and they're like, oh, by the way, these other people you need to look into too, because this exact same thing was going on, and you're right on.
Right.
Because she was working there when Hillary got bribed, the city council member by Sage. Yeah. Right. You know what I mean? So I mean, it's like, well, if I'm not wrong, I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just saying if I'm not wrong, and I'm
right, then why? This is my thing. Of it is, if people don't you know, if everything is on the up and up, why are people getting out of their feelings? Because at the end of the day, I'm gonna tell you like this: is that I know Marcus has had threats, I know Marvina has had threats, and I will tell you like this: we all stand in the light of God. We all stand in the light of truth. So I will tell you right now, at the end of the day, if anybody wanted to go up and do something, they would automatically know. They would automatically know.
And I want to say this from the beginning. Some of the people involved may or may not know that the CIA and FBI have been using them. Okay, so they may just think that they're whatever a cool person on this level. They may not even get the big game of what's being played because COINTELPRO never stopped. I have documents that I've been posting about Honeywell from the 80s, infiltrating the anti-Honeywell march about their drones that they were making with the laser guided stuff. Okay. And then we have the CIA, Iran-Contra, and we've already gone over that out of Minnesota. You had Adnan Higashi up here partying with Maxwell and Gorbachev. Okay, I mean, I don't know how else to say that. Higashi was a part of Stockwalk and MJK clearing that started tanking on 7 September 2001. So before September 11th, and that started tanking the U.S. economy, and that was with Genesis Media, which Alex Jones got to start at Genesis Media, which is funded by Adnan Higashi, the world's largest arms dealer.
Right.
I mean, and so, like, come on, like these things happened. Everybody knows it. Everybody's afraid to talk about the ghosts in the closet in Minnesota. Let's rip that Band-Aid off, sweetheart.
There, you know what? And that is the crazy thing, because a lot of people are afraid to talk about it. And I don't understand why. You know what I'm saying? Because, you know, everybody, this is the thing that I hear of, like, all this whistleblowers and all that. But if you get enough people, because I'll tell you like this, I will stand behind anybody and that's telling the truth, that wants to do the right thing. Because I'll tell you right now, I've done a lot of bad shit in my time, and I'd rather go to prison or jail for doing the right thing than doing the wrong thing. You know what I'm saying? Because there's people behind bars right now that are innocent. There's no evidence. And yet we're fighting over, I'm not going to say like just me and you know what I'm saying? But there's people out here that are distracted by other things in the world. And yet, what do? This is like, I get kind of frustrated. And maybe people don't understand my frustration or the things that I get mad about, but I read, and then I go to elected officials and I'll talk about, you know, all these injustices in America, in Minnesota, I won't say America, but in Minnesota. And it's like, well, I'm just one person, but yeah, you're elected. You have that title that I don't have, because I have that title a felon, and I got that title as a black man, and that's obvious, because I will tell you right now is that most of the things that are being posted right now with Minnesota Reformer or Care 11 or Star Tribune, those are white. They're not getting the threats. because they're white. But let me post about Major Tops or Clarence Hightower or Jerry McAfee or Bobby Champion, and I get everybody and their mama want to come at me.
Who is that Community Action Partnership, which is one of the flow-through organizations?
Right. That's what I'm talking about. And it's like people don't want to have other discussions. And it really gets, shouldn't say frustrating, but it gets like,
it goes back to the City Inc. though, in the way.
Right.
I mean, that's the thing. So, okay, how to put it? Big picture, if you want to know how the CIA operates, and the thing it is, though, is there's international companies in Minnesota like Honeywell, 3M, GM, Cray Computers. They're openly bribing foreign nations to influence their policy. This is all on record. And they each had their own spy network throughout the world to steal secrets. Okay. That's the way the business game works when you're at the top. Some of these people had their own shipping companies, like Cargill had their own shipping companies too, through a foundation or a trust or whatever. And so all I'm saying is, like, they had the supply chain and whatever else. And so, like, hey, you want to start a war in a country so that way you can have a port there, or what you call it, like do commerce there or whatever else. You want to overthrow the country. What they do then is they like run the drugs so that way they can do black ops and influence their government, radicals and whatever else, and try to overthrow whoever's in. It doesn't matter which side it is, but to try to get their interest. And that's exactly what we did in Afghanistan. Johnson & Johnson owned some of those poppy fields in that, I mean.
Everybody got a question of who am I speaking with?
Oh, my name's Robert Johnson. On Twitter, I'm at CrazyCorpsman22. On Facebook, I'm Robert Johnson. I don't know my exact thing, and I forget my thing on YouTube.
I do too. I subscribe to most people, or whatever, but I have to go. That's the way I look. I can't put people's names in because it gets hard as hell to look for shit sometimes.
But all I'm saying is these companies are doing the same thing here. And if you look at a lot of the foundations, like the McKnight Foundation, I think is tied into 3M's founders somehow. And then, you have the Bush Foundation, the Wilder Foundation, the Minneapolis Foundation. The Minneapolis Foundation was set up in 1915 to literally have a stay-behind crew, basically, to influence the future of the city from the city council and elected officials.
See, right? I want to stop you there for a minute, because when you see who the president and the director, CEO, whatever he calls himself, right? Who is that right now? That's the former mayor of Minneapolis, R.T. Ryback. And then you look at his board, and most of them are either business owners or stakeholders in the Minneapolis community, because I will tell you Shiloh Temple, Bishop Howell is on that board. I will tell you that I think her name is Lisa Goodman, I believe it is. And it's like, these people don't really want to talk about it.
When the thing of it is, though, the Minneapolis Foundation does a lot of donations outside of Minnesota and outside the country.
Right.
So I don't know why the foundation for Minneapolis that gets millions of dollars flown through it, and like hundreds of millions of dollars flown through it, that, sorry, do I need to back up?
No. Somebody just had a question because they said sounds like
it's starting to echo. Oh yeah, that's exactly what I'm telling you, how these organizations work, even like the private organizations. Because think about it this way: if you want plausible deniability, then you're going to. 1 second. Hey Rose, do you need me to shut off the camera for a minute?
No.
Okay. Sorry. I wasn't sure if my wife needed to walk through.
Good.
She was laying down. Sorry, some of them are just want to use flow-through organizations, and what they do is they try to influence people. And you start off with them doing something very small, right. And then you work on that, and you tug on that, and you help them cover it up, because then you go on to something bigger. And that video I sent you the other day of that CIA officer describing exactly that. I mean, so it starts off small, and what they want to do is they want to influence a community to cause whatever to their benefit. Let's say they want to do spying on the citizens. They're going to cause crime increase and whatever else in a response that caused that. Like things like George Floyd is a big one, a big push. In the 90s, it was the tough on crime stuff, you know, and then out of that came the fusion centers that were planned before 9/11. They were being presented by Rob Allen on 9/11, but it got delayed because 9/11 happened. He was supposed to present it that morning.
Right.
And it was in response to the tough on crime. And some of these think tanks, the big perf and that were started during that time were Honeywell, Armaments Division, General Mills, and stuff like that. And so, I mean, that's okay. If they're literally hiring them right out of the CIA is hiring their employees. So they've been doing the spying thing for a while, right? But then those same foundations again are in Minneapolis doing, and so it's just like, no, I think they have a voice in their future, and it shouldn't just be a bunch of rich guys behind the scenes trying to control everybody, man.
Right.
You know, and the CIA needs to declare themselves when they're doing ops inside the state, and the same thing with the FBI. We should have at least an intel community in the state senate or whatever that has oversight of the state saying, no, we're not going to allow you to run drugs in the state. Because I don't think that we should allow the government to run drugs and counterfeit money through the state. Right. And the Hawala system has been used for terrorism. Go look it up, Hawala terror, and that's the reason they do it. Whether or not everybody who uses that system is a terrorist. Just like with BCCI, it was people that were in the oil industry from Pakistan and that they had to send money back. This back. They set up that bank to do it, and that's the bank that the bankers used to launder all that money. It was because the people couldn't complain basically because otherwise they'd get deported. I mean, and so it just they did a lot of bad stuff with using people. And so when I say these things, I'm not saying it's the entire group. I'm saying they use people, you know.
I won't say they being used. I'm gonna go a little bit further because I think a lot of them know they're being used, but because they're being paid, it's okay. They think that it's okay, and they've crossed that line of understanding that what they are doing is wrong. So now they turn to what they're doing is right. And that's what I want to get into about a little bit. I want to back up a little bit. I shouldn't say back up, but the hot story right now, and it should have been years ago, is about Bobby Champion. And I kind of want to show, because with that Minnesota Regulatory Agencies and Registration that you did, we showed this at the state capitol 2 years ago to, you know, Pam and Walter. So it's not like, you know, anything that's coming out we haven't already discussed with people. You know what I'm saying? It's just that a bigger scale of people is now becoming aware. So I want to play that. And then I want to talk about it. I want to play that Minnesota Regulatory Agent. It's about 11 minutes long. But I want to play that, and I want people to hear, because the media is coming out with some shit, but they're not coming out with it all. So I'm going to play this, and then if you want me to stop it or anything, just let me know.
No, you just let it play through and then some questions.
Okay.
Just gonna real quick go through this PowerPoint about Minnesota regulatory agencies. So they're not performing their oversight job. Businesses don't have to register. They only enforce things on who they want to. There's tons of nonprofits and businesses that are not registered in the state. DBAs, you can go down the list. Churches registering as a DBA, you know, whatever. Licensing, what I'm saying by the licensing not required is that's for construction, for professional services like mental health. You can go down the list. So unless somebody actually looks into it, they're not going to do anything. And half the time they're not going to do anything anyway. I know with the mental health stuff, they did actually do something with Salem Inc. stuff. But there's a whole bunch of stuff like that that's going on, especially with the taxes and whatever else, right? And also for the housing. So the people working on housing aren't required to have licenses because the city won't even check it. They'll just sign off on it, right? And then the background checks for working with youth. I have a data request in for the city of Minneapolis Public Schools. They still haven't gotten back to me on anything with the background checks for New Salem's Educational Youth Initiative. Okay. DOL and federal housing guidelines not followed. Inspectors sign off anyway. For the Section 8 stuff, they just pencil whip it. And same thing for the city's individual rental housing laws. And I have a video where me and Chaz actually called out to one of the cities. And there's a smaller city. And they basically said as much, that they will allow us to fudge a whole bunch of stuff in order to be able to get people in there until we were able to get it up to code. No, it needs to be up to code. Okay, the Secretary of State, again, they're not registered or doing business as a different name. You have landlords, rental agencies, churches, nonprofits. The churches, nonprofits also run under a duplicate LLC. Mother's Love also has an LLC. Salem Inc. also has an LLC. That type of thing. Safe Streets is just a straight LLC. It's not a nonprofit. Yet they're getting bills directly apportioned to them, right? So direct grants and loans to LLC orgs affiliated with Bill Author. Bobby Joe Champion is some of these people's actual lawyer. He has represented Flowers before. He has represented McAfee before. And a couple other ones. So, like, if you're doing up bills directly for, you know what I mean? And he's really involved with KMLJ and all that. Previously with CSI, that gets interesting. Please look up CSI. Bobby Joe Champion had an ethics investigation into him over CSI. The Republicans did not check to see whether or not this was done, because he didn't. Okay, he did not register with the Secretary of State. So his fiscal agent wasn't a part of that. For Clarence Hightower, that was a fiscal agent through all that debacle, right? And that was New Bethel Missionary Baptist Church. Now they have True Vine, whatever. I have it on the other one, other slideshow, the exact name, and I can get that for you in a second here. Okay, the bill's author staff works at nonprofit. They got the money. As Turning Point for one of them. They had a big thing about it. Well, it's not that she was working for them, but she was working for them during the time that they got the money portioned directly to them. Bill Author works with community orgs that push votes for them. They do grants for votes. Lack of oversight. LLC, nonprofit, the same name. Yep, and then no reporting and oversight requirements. Undue influence. The community org selected is not an open bidding process. They're based on previous involvement with Minnesota Heals 2.0 prior to the 2022 elections. The community orgs, they also contract with the Downtown Improvement District. I have a whole paper that I've written on that, which I can get you guys. I wrote it for my ethics class about the undue influence and the legal problems and constitutional problems with how it runs, right? So it's not just my opinion. No, there's actual legal arguments behind it, right? And the Downtown Improvement District has an undue influence over the justice system. They have their own judge, prosecutor, etc. They also are able to tax, right? They levy taxes. They get the city to bite off on that, and the city's beholden to them. It's the reason why they have such a focus on Downtown Improvement District. Money's efforts used for operations not in the community awarded for. They're not using the money as much in North Minneapolis and stuff like that for actually doing services. They'll do a small little bit there, and then they'll go do these other things where they're getting paid twice, because they're actually getting paid on top of their grant money. And known criminal affiliations. One of them being Shazma Dixon was their billing for New Salem, right? Now here's her stuff for where she did the fraud. And here's her involvement with 21 Days of Peace and New Salem. Okay. So, Marlon Ace Boogie Moore, another fraudster. He also ended up getting rid of evidence. He destroyed evidence in that. And you can go down the list. Here's the legislative update on that, right? And here he is signing for a contract with Minneapolis schools as the CEO of Salem Inc.
Damn.
And here's their contract. Okay. The actual provider for the education services with that, the individual they have on that, isn't listed as an employee on the 990s. So that gets interesting. Okay. I'll open up another one here. Let me see if I can get this pull up. There we go. Okay, the Jones Day contract. So here's the thing: is Lugar actually got a activist hired on to respond to some of the stuff and put pressure on the city. That was Leslie Raymond.
Redmond. Come on, Jay. DJ.
Redmond. Yeah, Leslie Redmond. Here we go. And down at the bottom, in the recommendations right here, okay,
Elijah Darius.
They got together and they got Leslie Redmond, right, to be the community leader. Well, then they also went and they contracted with the city to respond to the complaints. Okay, only a few of the lawyers had been found to be registered. They were based out of the Minnesota office. The rest of the lawyers were not. I haven't been able to find their registration. The contract was renewed under Yvette McGee Brown, and the top three minimum did not register. I have all the information there. Okay, and the contract stuff. And then you have these community guys who got him in with that. Now, see, in 2022, Lugar at Minnesota Heals 2.0 and met with many of these people. Okay, so these people were already selected ahead of time, and now they're getting the money. Okay, here's the different nonprofits. You can go look those up. Minnesota Safe Streets is a big one. Greater Mount Nebo. This was Flower's mom's church, and you can see right here that what I was saying on that. It's just a DBA as Al, his mom, and Joe Spratt. And here's the CSI stuff, right? New Bethel. Missionary Baptist Church doesn't exist. They made it True Vine, and they did that up later afterwards, much later. Here's the appropriations, right? New Youth Redevelopment. Shasma was a part of that. We have the documents on that. These guys get selected to become community leaders, and it gets interesting. So that's that. Hopefully that helps. If you guys need anything else, please let me know. And sorry about the delay.
The rest of that for that presentation, though, because I sent you the slides too.
Right.
Is that in the slides that I was talking about when they were calling out the CIA and that, and then how they didn't afterwards. And that was right around the time that Ellison went to Israel with Luger.
Right. And see that that's the whole crazy thing of it that made also, and people don't remember is Cortez Rice went through a little situation with the Judge Chu and shit, right? Well, one of the attorneys for Cortez, Jordan, used to be friends with Keith Ellison. And that's when a lot of this shit, that's the whole crazy thing of it is of like people don't even understand of like all the connections and
Ellison got to start with McAfee when they went down to get the guy for Hoff's murder, and they got the reward money off that.
Right.
And that's not the only time that happened where they got reward money. But I know on at least the Hoff case, those kids were framed from what I found. I mean, like from the evidence I found, I believe very firmly those kids were framed, and it was used to do the tough on crime stuff because we started the stuff up here. In the 80s, actually, James Torito was the guy that was pushing tough on crime. He was the guy that took over for Kathleen Morris for Scott County Attorney after the 80s sex abuse case. So, but he was the president of the County Attorneys Association, and so he started that in the 80s, and the Metro Gang Task Force started up, okay, and that Metro Gang Task Force was the same one that in 09, okay, but then they also had the judicial standards. They had like all these new boards they started up and like special things for judges to do, and they also did a lot of like nationwide standards based off of it. They pushed the 92 crime bill, and then they pushed the foundations again that I said they got in bed with Minnesota Hills, the original one with Luger's wife on there. That was what with that as well, and so you still have though that same involvement that was running Iran Contra. So to have wars so they could sell weapons and stuff.
The crazy thing to me has always been like people have known in the community, and I get it. I'm not saying that some of these people aren't killers or they don't have killers around them or they don't know killers, but there's got to be a point of where you stand up for what's right because you know what's right. You know what I'm saying? You just don't look the other way or, well, I'm getting paid, so I'm okay with it. No, you know what I'm saying? What if that was your family member? Or what if that was your son, your daughter, your grandson, or your granddaughter? And it's like, I get it. We got to stop worrying about we believe that a certain few are being taken care of. What about everybody else? You know what I'm saying? So I totally get where, you're not seeing politics out of all of this, and you just want people to be seen equal, whatever they look like. You know what I'm saying? So I get it. And I don't know.
It's corruption, dude. And if we allow it on one side, it's going to happen on the other.
On the other side.
And with the conflict of interest stuff, Chief Justice Gildea got away with doing the ruling on line 3 that it didn't need an environmental assessment. Well, it went to her father's land, and she got money from it. We were exposing that, and then she decided to retire. No one picked that up, but yeah, you go look it up. And so the environmental assessment, if anybody doesn't know, those protesters took it overboard, okay? However, they were just trying to get an environmental assessment to see whether or not there was a risk. Well, there was a risk because they punctured through not just one, but I think multiple aquifers up there. And one of them drained part of a wild rice bed that was like very sacred to them. So, I mean, like, it happened though, and could that have been prevented? Probably. Was there a big conflict of interest? You're getting money out of your father's estate that you're the executor of.
Right.
I think that's a big financial interest, but now she sits in the courts with Natalie Hudson, and Natalie Hudson's son is Kobe Hudson, who runs the Minnesota Fusion Center for the BCA. So, I mean,
okay, I'm gonna be honest, right? I'm gonna be honest because a lot of people don't know the connection, and I'm gonna be honest, and that's the whole point of like, I was glad Walter went to that presentation that I did at the state capitol because I knew that he was had been at Shiloh Temple. So the fact that he was pushing back on a lot of the shit that was well, we could do this, we could do that, you know. Well, I don't know. That's because I understand that somewhere down the line, because I'm told if you keep on digging and you dig deeper, you're going to get more names. And the crazy thing of it is that other people have been doing the digging and connecting the dots. They just haven't been connecting all the dots and where they lead to.
I'm gonna tell you how I got my nickname as CrazyCorpsman. Okay, it was when I was working out at Point Magoo. We had just gotten told that morning that we had to watch how people were dressed and that they had to be in proper uniform and not their uniform not be dirty and whatever else, and no covers on in medical and all that jazz, right? And so I had corrected this kid that was heading down to the audio booth, because he had his shirt untucked. He just gotten done working on a plane. He had rushed over, didn't fully tuck in his shirt, and he had his hat on. The kid was just looking ragged, you know what I mean? So he worked overnights. So I had to correct him, and he no problem. He just corrected himself. But then a few minutes later, when I was heading down to the audio booth, the CEO of the base is standing there with his hands in his pockets, which is like a big thing in the military, with his hat on, talking to the pharmacist. And I was like, oh, shit, because that kid had to walk by him. You know what I mean? I watched the kid walk by him. So I stopped. I was like, sir, respectfully request permission to ask you a question. He goes, what is it, Johnson? I said, can I ask you to take off your hat and like take your hands out of your pockets? And he's like, why the heck would I do? I mean, the guy just went like ballistic on me, you know. And when he got done, I was like, well, according to the milk PERS man, and I cited off the manual number, you know what I mean, and the BU PERS instruction is this and this and this, you know, and this is why, and it's also out of respect for dead and the dying, sir. I had to correct the E1 just a minute ago, and so sorry, I have to correct you because he walked by you, man. You know, and he's like, well, go away, Johnson. You know what I mean? I walked away, and then I went right into my OIC's office. I'm like, you're probably getting a phone call, and the pharmacist comes running down, and she's like, oh my gosh, that was just awesome. You did it like right according to the instruction. And I'm like, well, you told us to police the uniforms, right, sir? And he's like, God, Johnson, what did you do? You know, so dude, if I see something, I'm gonna sort of say something, and I don't care who you are. I'm not gonna be handled.
Right.
You know what I mean? I have no problem helping you out, but I'm not gonna be handled.
Right. And that's, to be honest, I kind of feel like anytime I go to meetings or get into conversations, I sometimes feel like I'm being handled and not like, because that's the whole thing about all this. Because even when it comes to information, you know, it's like, well, we know it's there, but we don't want to report it because of who the players are involved, you know, and that's my whole thing of it is because they could have easily taken Bobby Champion in this. You know, that's the whole thing I don't get.
Who Bobby Champion was when we started this off. Remember, like, so a lot of these names I had to ask you about or other people,
right?
And then you guys tell me who they are. I'm like, oh, okay, this is just what I found, man. So I mean, hey.
And to be honest, I get that because if people don't remember when Senator Justin Eichhorn, ex-Senator Justin Eichhorn, was arrested by Bloomington police, they didn't even know that he was a state senator. So I do honestly believe that there's certain people that are either in, you know, when it comes to politics or, you know, either in the House or the Senate that don't know certain individuals. And I do understand that Minnesota is
I just knew who represented my area. That was it.
Right. It's a big place. So, I mean, shit, to be honest, I didn't know who half these fucking people were. And now I damn near pretty much everybody. You know what I'm saying? That's the crazy thing. And then people were like, oh, well, you do this, you do that. Okay, what do you do? You know, that's the one thing, because everybody's right now giving, and I don't care about the credit. That's the one thing that I don't care about. But why now? I know it's always better late than never. But why now? Because I'll tell you right now that people have had to go through bullshit. Have had to go through bullshit all to be transparent and just be, they just wanted the truth. And I don't think, honestly, a lot of people in Minneapolis or in Minnesota, northern or southern, really wanted the truth because there was so much fingers in the pot. And to be honest, when I really look at a lot of this fraud and scams and wasteful shit, I know a big part of it was before COVID, but I think really what topped it off was the loose lack of oversight and regulations on a lot of this shit, because you were able to start up nonprofits very easy. You were able to, they were doing Section 8 without even actually coming to the house and being certified. And we proved that in Red Wing, you know what I'm saying? When we called, I still can't believe that, but it just shows that if you have money, they're willing to play. And so, and that's her area, that's her district, that's Pam Altendorf's district.
Well, it's a pattern like that we found, though. I mean, like where it's just like one of those things where people let things small slide, and they're trying to act in the best interest of the town, but the town as a corporation or the town as representatives of the people.
Right.
So a corporation is supposed to exist to be able to have a bank account in perpetuity, basically, and certain things like that. But it's not in existence to take over the will of the town. It's supposed to be the will of the people represented through your representatives. And it shouldn't be just a stepping stone to another spot, And I mean, if you want to go back to the influence of the violence interrupters and violence causers, I guess, and politicians, Wellstone got in bed with the vice lords back in the 90 election. It was like a big deal at the time, and Sternberger that he was running against, I forget who it was.
I don't even remember who he was running against, but that was something that was big during that time, because a lot of people were like, wait, he's getting involved with vice lords, like gang members. And so, I mean, to be honest, I get it. But if it wasn't for Wellstone, I really feel like there wouldn't have been that Senate investigation about drugs and guns in inner cities, because it wasn't just Sharif Willis up there. It was, I think, David Banner. Maybe it wasn't him. I don't know who it was.
Well, it's a brilliant strategy to get people on the streets to actually go out and do stuff rather than having to pay for ads. You're getting people to go talk to people. I mean, like that the grassroots smurfing type thing. That's what they do. You know what I mean? It's not like he's the one that came up with that, with the Wellstone bus. I mean, he did a lot of good things. Yeah, he was looking into some Catholic father's death. Like less than 6 months before he died, the DNC requested all of his emails, from the FBI. Why is the DNC requesting his email 6 months before his death?
Sure, I don't know.
And he was against whatever war that they were going to be voting on. I think it was Iraq. He was against that and was going to vote no.
Is that how Norm Coleman got into?
And you're telling me that Honeywell would run drugs and like, you see where I'm going with that? But
I do, and the crazy thing of it is, and I here's the crazy thing that I'm going to say, right? Because a lot of people will call me a conspiracy theorist, or I'm putting the information out there. It's for you to believe it or not. But I can say this is that it's 2025, and a lot of this shit has been talked about years before. And because people did see it as the truth, but there was people in power that had a narrative and agenda to achieve. So that was more important than the transparency and the truth. And that's been, I can tell you like this, that I honestly feel like that's been, as long as the public doesn't know, just like with the Miami of the North, you had a whole city in Minnesota that was in bed with the cartel, that had an airport up there because of the cartel. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, let's not act like Minnesota doesn't have a long history of corruption, even when it came to, even with Marvin's case, even when, I played the story yesterday, and I think we talked about this on the phone yesterday too, as well as that story I ran yesterday from Aiken County. That man has been up there in prison 26 years, and there was no evidence that said that he was the killer. because he was the wrong person at the wrong time. And that's the way it goes. The same thing with Marvin. The same thing with a lot of black and brown individuals in Minneapolis is it was the wrong place in the wrong time.
Well, like I found on James's case, there's a judge that didn't even read the charges into the record.
Right.
Okay. Never got a plea on the record. Never gave the statement of rights or read his rights on the record. And then the first appearance was after the indictment was considered the second appearance or something. And then they didn't do the omnibus within the time period. I mean, I can go down the list. Like, you have to do the first appearance. You can't do the plea at the first appearance. You have to wait till the second appearance or omnibus, according to Rule 5 and 8. I think it is. There's 5, 8, and 11 are that I found that were applicable to this. And it's like there's a simple court rules that they have to follow for the plea to be valid. Either guilty or not guilty, but you can't do a valid plea unless you know the charges. You have to be informed of the charges against you. You have to understand them. There's a whole, because if you can't understand them, that's where they find you mentally incompetent.
Right.
You know, and so it's like that's it. Just there's procedures that we can do. You know, and the judges not need to be activists, and they either for the left or the right, or I hate this person. They should be a neutral arbiter of the law, but they're not. You know, and then same thing with the
part that. I don't mean to cut you off, but that's the part that bothers me. Right? Is you have people like Keith Ellison or Mike Freeman, Amy Klobuchar, who continues. I know he's not in office anymore. Freeman isn't. But the others keep on. They did so much railroading and to actually make their political careers affluent. Well, they left families behind in Minneapolis, all a mess. And then you see, like this weekend, Amy Klobuchar was big in St. Paul. Keith Ellison was big in Duluth. And these are like, damn, how are people coming out and not confronting? Because if people honestly, here's my thing of it is, and I want to ask, since there was either 25 or 80,000 people at the state capitol on Saturday for hands-off protest, did you ask Amy Klobuchar when is she going to let these people out of prison that are innocent and there's no evidence?
If I'd have known she was there, I definitely would have punked her ass. If you didn't know that,
No, you would have.
No clue.
But the crazy, I'll be honest. I think she came midway during it because she was a speaker. But the whole crazy thing of it is, I think honestly, if you would have did that, you would have had people that would have, even though you're fighting. This is the crazy thing, and I want people to think about it. Right, is that you would have been fighting for black and brown lives. Who are they fighting for? Because they, you know what I'm saying? They're like, who are you? What team are you on? Or do you want justice and accountability? Are you more worried about tampons in boys' bathrooms?
And if people don't realize that when she first got into office, they were still doing their rights to the river.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's the thing, is that some of that stuff has been covered up for so long. People don't understand what they were taking hundreds of kids down to the river, beating them up and threatening them to try to get information.
And that's public information. That's not something that's oh, you gotta do all this shit to get it. No, that's not the case. You just do a simple Google search.
Oh, there was a native guy that they beat up, and I think they left him in the trunk, or I forget what all it was.
Mm-hmm.
That?
It was in the trunk.
Yeah, like you can't do that to people, man. Like there's laws, there's constitution. We sort of do that. Some of those cops are still on the force probably today.
Right. And that's the crazy part for me is like everybody wants to talk about George Floyd. What about all the other people? Because I will tell you right now that he's probably like 16 or 17 now, probably almost an adult. But if anybody remembers when a so-called police officer was, no, I think this was just 2 years ago, so we're probably not that old yet. But that there was a ambush in North Minneapolis and that they were beating kids up. You know what I'm saying? And like, they didn't charge no kids. They charged adults in that. There's no kids, but kids were literally beat up because I will tell you like this, even during the half days, because I was in Minneapolis, depending on where you were at and the color of your skin, they were fucking you up. They were beating your ass. And that was the same thing that happened during Jamal Mitchell, that happened during the police officer that was ambushed. It's a cycle. And if
Yeah,
you don't,
that's all I'm saying is like, okay, so we have to address these things, and we have to address the corruption within any organization. And the police department's an organization. It's going to have some corruption. Why? There's humans there. Wow. And if we allow that to continue, guess what? Then the corruption grows. If you cut off the corruption, then the corruption ends. That's just the way it works. You have to get onto the root of it, though, man.
you see, and that's where, you know, a lot of people get mad at me or whatever because I bring up certain stories. Like, I got motherfuckers getting mad at me right now about Clarence Hightower, but I'm not letting that go. Because there shouldn't be no way that that man has all these stories and we uplift him in North Minneapolis. And it's like, why? You don't care about the kids that were abused? You know, I don't mean you know what I'm saying? But it's like, do people honestly believe that a lot of that shit that was during the 90s and the early 2000s was all just lies or just narratives or allegedly? Because there was people that actually went to prison and were charged over things like this, but never ever did we get maybe a major tops, because we all know what happened. I don't mean to speak ill on the dead, but we all understand what happened to Major Tops and what happened in the church basement. You know what I'm saying?
There's that guy that got caught, that teacher that I sent you from one of those back in the 80s, where somebody went to bat for him at trial for the teacher's license. Yeah, they were going to revoke his license, man, and they tried to keep him on, and there was a teacher that was like messing with kids, man, and like,
and I'm gonna be honest.
Why would a pastor go ask him to be around kids? I see about, for even if you're trying to do the whole treatment and forgiveness, allowing him back around kids is not
right.
It's like allowing an alcoholic into a bar.
Right. Oh no, and that's the one thing I definitely agree on. You know what I'm saying? Is like, I don't understand of how, because you know what's funny to me is like in the last year, you've seen Harvest Best Academy come up with the Abdul Wright. But not only Abdul Wright, there was I can't remember the other guy. He was a janitor or whatever. He was employed there, but he was actually sexually abusing the kids. And then they finally had to look at Eric Mumad. I probably didn't say his name right, but then when you looked at Eric, you had to bring up the fact that he was charged and convicted of mortgage fraud in Georgia. You know what I'm saying? So how aren't these people going to do the same exact thing if they don't have to pay no accountability? If they don't have to pay no responsibility, they can just point fingers and think that well, it's not my fault. I'm all good. You know what I'm saying? We never will get an answer. And then the same thing's coming up with Bobby Champion. And I'm glad people are looking at CSI investigation, ethics investigation needs to be opened back up. To be honest, with L. Flowers and Jeff Hayden and a lot of that shit.
Yeah, the Young People's Task Force is no longer open, and I don't think it, and they never filed anything with the IRS. They just got their approval letter. That's it.
Right.
You know, and it's been a few years, and they've gotten money through UCMT and what's that? The Minnesota Safe Streets. Minnesota Safe Streets is that's UCMT, all that group. That's a whole bunch of other ones. A Mother's Love. What's the other one that was a part of? I was a part of the Safe Streets, and then his son Junior is the Young People's Task Force,
Right.
and then his sister Lisa is a Mother's Love Initiative, and Mother's Love Initiative is the one that has the LLC as well. Same thing with Salem Inc. And so it's just like, well, hey, if these people are the same people that have been for 30 years getting the money and supposedly making change, and we don't see the change, then I'm saying that maybe we should look at where the money's going.
See,
that's it, you know.
That's, you know, and I've been thinking a lot especially since Friday, right? Because with the media coming out with it has changed the ball game a little bit. And it's piqued certain people's interest. I told you yesterday that a lady had reached out to me, and a lot of people thought I was a troll account with the information that I was putting out on my X feed. They thought I was literally a troll account because sometimes I do troll people. You know what I'm saying? But then you got to look at their actions. There's a whole reason of why I do the shit that I do. The same thing when it came with like Sir Major or a lot of these. I don't know what the fuck his name is on Twitter now. He's an ex-police officer. But if you looked up I think Daryl Bassett is his name, from Mobile, Alabama, like Sir Biglowski or whatever. But if you looked up his information and then you seen that he was let go of an investigation, and he wasn't the only officer, because there was others in Mobile, Alabama. And it's like, damn, how can y'all say y'all want change, but don't call these people out so that we can get the change? Just like in Jackson, Mississippi, they want to get behind that black mayor. Well, can that mayor tell us who them 250 bodies that were buried behind the police station were? Because no families knew their loved one was there. They were either reported missing, or people just thought they were just in thin air.
To me, it's not about skin color. I mean, like, if we have more in common than we don't, you know what I mean? Or if I'm working on an issue and you have totally opposite views of me, but you're saying, hey, cops shouldn't be able to get away with Brady and Giglio violations without any repercussions whatsoever, even it being recorded in their file and then being put on the Brady list, so that way they can't testify if they're liars in court, proven. Then, like, okay, if you're saying that that's okay, I'm not going to be down for that, and I'm going to be with whoever's. Doesn't matter if they're left or whatever else, or I don't agree with them on a lot of other things. On that one issue, I'm going to say, yeah, you're right. You know what I mean? I'll give credit where credit's due.
I'll be honest. A lot for me is about race, and I'm going to tell you this: is that I've said it before as an individual. I know people tell me all the time, "Don't make it about you," because then people are more worried about the messenger and not the message. And it's like, why can't people be worried about both? Because the messenger has his own experience in this bullshit. You know what I'm saying? And that's like the crazy thing is, like, even with all these names that are put up here, like Leslie Redmond or Lazar Darius, and it's like, yeah,
that's not the reason I'm going after them. I'm not going after them because that's all I would say.
Yeah,
if I find something, I'm going to say it. It doesn't matter
right what color they are. No, and that's one thing why I highly respect you. You know what I'm saying? And like, even with, I think me and, like, there's a guy in Rochester named Wes Lund, and I think we kind of got on maybe the wrong foot around some kind of way, because I believe we want the same agendas, we want the same goals, but because he's a Republican and he's want to be a part of that GOP party and and all that, it's hard to get those people to see that there is something else out there, that there is a better and a different way, because you don't have to be a Democrat, you don't have to be a Republican, and I still believe that we can get change. You don't have to be inside that political establishment, and I don't care if you're Action for Liberty or your DSA or what's that one party, Liberation Party, I think it is. I don't know, something like that. Liberated, I don't know, or something like that.
Well, yeah, like the Green Party, you have, I mean, quite a few different ones.
Right. Yeah, I think that we need a change.
If you're not being coercive, you know what I mean? If your idea is good and people want to go with it, then okay. You may not even get elected, but if it's an idea, cool. I mean, if you're able to get elected off it, cool. If the people agree with you, then cool. But let's not try to take over the world with each group. Make it to where, like, hey, people agree with you. And
right. That's even like, I'll even say in Minneapolis, I want Marvina Haynes, and I don't agree with everybody that's endorsed her. You know what I'm saying? Because I feel like there's different connections or bullshit or whatever. But I know at the end of the day, I don't have to deal with them. I'm dealing with Marvina. You know what I'm saying? And maybe I don't know anymore. To be honest, I don't. You know what I mean? Like, I do feel like I'm in a lot of Black Minnesotans or Minneapolis, people that have been in this for a very long time. And I think it's even I don't know, maybe it's a little different with you because, and I hate to say this, but people look at me and you a little bit differently. And I think a lot of that is because of the skin color. And I get frustrated at times because, people want to talk about how I'm not talking to him because he's got a criminal past. Well, you deal with criminals every day at sources. You know what I'm saying? It's like just because people want to put mine and they want to give it a narrative instead of the truth, that people really honestly look at the messenger and they forget about the message. Because even when it came to Bobby Champion or McAfee, these allegations or allegedly, whatever the words they want to use, aren't new. It just took a while for Star Tribune or Kerry Levin or the people at play, our elected officials, to honestly do something.
The story about the Stair Step Foundation, a couple of these other things have been out there. So it's not like people didn't know. I think that people were just too afraid to challenge it because of what it might look like, because he's the first Black president, and it looked like whatever. I didn't even know that until I was watching him do some interviews like last night. And I was like, oh, okay. I'm sorry. I didn't know that's not the reason why, but it's, how to put it, it's there, you know what I mean? So we go off of what's there, and like
I push harder.
It happened to be that this is the way that it panned out.
Right.
I don't try to make up anything. It's just, and that's the reason it's great to have you. And you have a bigger platform than I do, I think, as far as following. And I'm not trying to. I try to give you the credit back because I don't. I'm not.
The crazy thing of it is like the attention that you get from like Kerry Levin or Star Tribune about like stories like this. This is the shit, because I'll tell you like this: me and Deanna Winters conversations, I guarantee, are completely different.
Well, I told her that about you too, and she finally started understanding once the Minnesota Reformer did the story. She sent it to me.
Right.
So that's how I was like, whoa, okay.
Right.
And I knew it was based off the information she gave them. She's like, you need to sit down and explain this to me more, because half the stuff you say sounds like Greek to me. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying, like, I don't understand it.
And I think that is the biggest problem that is going on in Minnesota, is that a lot of people, and especially when it comes to elected officials, they don't know the in and outs. This is the same thing that we deal with police officers. That's why I love TC so much. You know what I'm saying? Because I was on the other side of the gun, where he was a correctional officer and I was an inmate. And we don't have that relationship anymore. That's just TC, you know what I'm saying? Minnesota Black Regiment, and I'm just Chaz Neal, urban conservative. I don't see him as a former officer or anything like that. So we can get somewhere, on a level board, if people just look at for what it really is, and stop always getting mad about the messenger and just look at the message, because it's there.
It's not my story. Like, some people come at me as if like I'm just trying to go after somebody.
Right.
It's not my story. I'm saying these are the people that have helped me, and this is the story that needs to be told. And the only thing, once I get the Dropbox up for all the files that we have, is to get access to that. I'm going to have you reserve the rights for a book and a movie, and for it to have the proceeds go back to the community. So that way we can do stuff in the community, and make improvements that way, because it's not my story. It's your story. It's do you see where I'm going with that?
I do. And I want to say this is because I know a lot of people look at what they do. Oh, you're just a hater, you're jealous, or you're this, you're that. Here's the thing of it is, we've laid out how these RFPs, and I know a lot of people don't understand this because you're not in that world. We are trying to educate you so you can come into this world. I know a lot of people get nervous or they get fed up, and then, okay, we'll get educated. They're not going to pay you to get educated. You know what I'm saying? They're not going to pay you to get educated, and because they want to leave you behind. The whole point of this system, the way it was designed, it was a nation of workers, not thinkers. And then it even I know people get mad at me. Well, you don't need to be talking about slavery. It happened. I'm not saying that we didn't get past it and we didn't move on. I'm saying that it's still here in other factions, in other ways. We have gotten rid of certain language. We haven't gotten rid of it all. And to be honest, a lot of people don't want to look at it like that. Right? He does. Nope. Same with Trooper Roper.
And like the stuff that we disagree on, I'm not saying that you're wrong. It's just that's not my opinion or that's not my lived experience. Does that make sense?
It does.
Everybody has a different lived experience, and so like I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm just saying I don't agree with that. That's the generalization or whatever. And we talked about that. You know what I mean? And I will call out some of the racist stuff when I see it. And you know that. You know what I mean? But I think that the entire system needs to be torn down, be the way that it is as far as the corruption goes. Because even in the small areas, it's about like whose cousin you are, who knows who for who gets to be elected, and
then the crazy thing of it is, what a lot of people don't understand is when it comes to, I don't mean to cut you off, but when it comes to like them Africans, Ethiopians, Somalians, or Nigerians, is that they had their own tribes in their own countries. So they bring their problems from their countries over here. And that's why we see a lot of the things that we do see, and people are wondering, like, well, because
it's the same thing around rural Minnesotans too, though.
No, I agree.
Like, what is it? The Germans in Belle Plaine are different than the Germans in Jordan because they don't like each other. Right. I don't know why, but there's always a little bit of a town feud there. It used to be worse. And then the Czechs in New Prague really didn't like other people, and so like it was this whole like area little thing based on. Then you had this little Irish town out there, you know what I mean? And they stayed to themselves, like St. Patrick's or whatever it is, and
and I will say this is like I don't think this is said enough, right? Because like what got me involved into looking into city charters and 990 forms and trying to understand that it's been a process. I didn't want to do this willingly. You know what I'm saying? It's like the more that I dug into the closet is the more I got interested. And I wanted to bring the corruption because I don't ever want a child to go through the situations that I've gone through. And I still feel like a lot of that is happening, even when it came to like the CPS, because I will tell you, this hasn't been dealt with because I know this still happens, is that they say that they're helping kids, but only become ward of the states because it brings more money to Minnesota. And, and that's something that I have went through because what a lot of people don't know is, and this is crazy, and I told this to Deanna Winter, if you don't believe me, I've asked the sheriff, I've asked the lawyers, the judges, unseal my shit. I understand I was a juvenile at the time, but unseal it and then find out who my targets were for the girl I shot. Go ahead, and this is the one crazy thing for me, is if I'm lying, I'm dying. Because it's, the thing of it is, it's public knowledge, public information, but because it's sealed, I shouldn't really call it public information because it's not public, because it is sealed. But it gets mad, I get frustrated when you can't even, they don't even want, honestly, to do their homework. They want people to do their homework for them. They want people to do their research, and depending on who that person is, then we'll believe it or not. Because I would tell you like this, the story that's been out since Friday, this story didn't just come out Friday. It's been out here. Just because mainstream media wanted to talk about it, everybody wants to talk about it. Because I will tell you like this, you can go on your page, my page, the Leon block, any of that, and it's been there.
I think part of it is, so as I said, people knew about the Stair Step Foundation. Well, also, I don't think this blow up at the city hall and that, I don't think that if that hadn't happened, I don't think there would have been enough people knowing that there was some sort of issue. Does that make sense?
Right.
Why would the county getting to say the contracts have that big of a response? I mean, even if it's controversial, you could see somebody getting a little bit upset, but why would somebody get like
the way they have been?
wow?
Right.
They're trying to say that Hennepin County is corrupt, but there was lawsuits about the way that they were handling the contracts for the city. So people started asking, and when you provide the answers while people are asking, if I just tell you that the 1,556, and I don't tell you the equation that I used to get there, like, how does that fit in? When people are asking what is 1 plus whatever, and you're like, well, that's 2.
Right.
Oh, okay. Then it makes more sense logically to people too.
I understand it, and I shouldn't even say I understand it. It bothers me, right? And because I know a lot of people like, oh, this feels good, don't it? Because listen, nothing's changed. There's been stories highlighted. That's it. I don't, you know what I'm saying? I want change. I don't care about the 15 minutes of limelight because let's talk about the fact that of my resolution in Red Wing proclaiming racism a public health crisis. Let's talk about the rental license program that I help initiate. All right, let's talk about the strategic racial equity action plan.
Ama, right? Is that her name?
Who?
The little girl out there?
Anaya?
Yeah, the one that's been harassed.
Oh, Angela?
The kid?
The kid.
Yeah, Plank, right?
Oh, Plank, Amber Plank, yep.
Yeah, her daughter.
Right.
Yeah, that's been going through all that out there. I mean, like, that needs to be dealt with. That's what I'm saying. Bam Lang stuff. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that, I just try to amplify people's story and make sure that I do some research behind it, help it make sense, and if it makes sense, it makes sense.
And that's what bothers me about like even Red Wing, right? Or even like with the story with Amma, because it's not something that's new to Red Wing. It's been there. Even with Sam Norquist or every Friday they protest, I guess, in front of Main Street. And I'd be looking like, damn, we ain't never had that many people. Because I remember when I shouldn't say somebody spray painted, I shouldn't say spray, they spray chalked the band shell that was in Red Wing, and I was getting the blame for it, and I wasn't even in town. But because I was known, you know what I'm saying, to local law enforcement and to officials, I'm like, oh, we'll just put it on him. You know what I'm saying? Because it's easier to make me the bad guy than to actually put the spotlight, not calling y'all the bad guy, but to put the spotlight on the systems that is abusing and traumatizing people. Because it's not about, I'm not trying to, I just want to see everybody be treated equally. I want everybody to see treated fair, because even the conversations that are going on with Carmelo, the 17-year-old kid, and sitting in jail for murder, and I think it's Texas. You know what I'm saying? It's like we should never, ever have a discussion about who's right or wrong because of some person's skin. And that's, to me, honestly, what it comes down to is like, well, he's guilty because he's black, or like we got laws, and I don't want people to look at laws either if you're a Democrat or Republican or you're black or white. I just want you to look at the law, to intent, what they meant behind it.
If we're saying on the employment side that the standard should be the same across the board, right? Then probably on the legal side, we should have the same standards across the board. So if it's self-defense, it needs to be self-defense. If it's, hey, manner of death was homicide, meaning not a natural death, right? And then the cause of death was, sorry, that'd be the cause of death, whatever. And the manner of death was, be homicide, and then like you have the murder, right? And like, so if I intended to and I brought the thing there, okay, that's murder one. If you know what I mean, and it should be pretty cut and paste like that. But a lot of times it just matters on how good of an actor your lawyer is, or how good of an actor their lawyer is, and yada yada yada. And you pay more for the higher actor, And it's not even about the dang facts of the dang case,
Nope, it's about who can tell the best story and who can make you believe that story. And that's what, what's crazy is So I'm on probation right now for spitting at the police. Prosecutor didn't want to give me no plea. So I dealt with the judge and just pled guilty, right? Because I knew that who the judge was, I knew his record, and I knew his history of being a let it go Joe. So that's the way I went with it. And it's crazy because people never have to really look at the situation until they're in it. And I would say it like this is that I was going into a situation that was stacked up against me. They wouldn't allow my evidence. They wouldn't allow all the videos or the circumstances. They wanted the fact that what they could see on a little 30-second video, a clip that they took from over an hour video, that it made me guilty. And
You're supposed to be able to present evidence for the charges against you. And again, that goes back to the standard rules of procedure.
Right.
These judges don't follow it, you know. You have to be able to tell a defense too to whatever.
No, no, go ahead.
Oh no, that was it, man. I was gonna circle back around to the thing you had up about the addition of the stair step with Bobby Joe and that.
Yep.
Because if people don't realize he was been working on the pro bono stuff for Minnesota Legal Aid and that, while he was also working for both Hubert Humphrey and Mike Hatch. So I don't know how you can do pro bono legal defense work while working for the Attorney General, who's going to have to represent the state if they appeal. That sounds like a conflict of interest a little bit.
And that was the crazy part, because I feel like a lot of situations that people could talk about that were potentially conflicts of interest. I'm not gonna use allegedly. I'm gonna say potentially. Because if you come out with something after the fact, when other people have exposed it, and because certain people were coming out with it and talking about it, that's why I felt like Bobby Champion was allowed to do the things that he's been done. And to be honest, like I said this yesterday, I don't honestly see Bobby Champion, even though he's done the things that he's done, I think he loses his titles, but he doesn't lose his seats. And that to me is sad. You know what I'm saying? It's like, right. Oh, I agree. They said our justice system took a left turn why a crime was committed instead of guilty or not guilty became the most important factor. You know, that's been a long time coming, and I think we could have potentially had stopped that. And instead, people were more focused on going to work and taking care of their families than calling out the BS when it came inside of our public schools, when it came inside our judicial systems, because they're so political nowadays, and they shouldn't be. It should all be on, because I will tell you right now, a lot of these statutes or a lot of these laws, they were on the books before we were born.
Well, people got to realize that punishment for felony used to be death,
right?
And so, like, since they changed that, which is probably a good thing, they didn't used to worry about. As far as when I say why, like, you have to have intent and premeditation. Those are the two things for murder one, right? You have to have intent and premeditation, and you have to meet a certain aggravating, I think, factor. For murder two, it's still with intent, but not premeditation. And then you have the felony one. But the felony one is basically you committed an underlying felony that half the time they don't even charge you with. So, and they can add that in last minute. Right. So the problem becomes is there's a different defense for an assault, and they have to prove the assault to say you assaulted somebody. But what they do is they charge you with like murder or whatever. Let's say it's a self-defense or whatever. You know what I mean? And they say, well, in Minnesota, you have their duty to flee, or so it doesn't matter if they assaulted you, you still assaulted them because you had a weapon. And then they can get you on murder too, because then the person died. But this charge of a weapon negligently is an assault. It's assault too, and so that's what they do. And it all depends on who they do that to. But I mean, you have the potential here in Minnesota, even with the CCP, if they consider it negligent discharge, to be able to have that secondary murder charge real quick, and they do that with a lot of different, you know what I mean? They'll get you to say something in court, and then they'll add lesser included based on your own admission and during your defense that wouldn't have been included if they would have let you know the charges that stood against you, rather than changing the charge last minute. That's not knowing the charges that stand against you,
Right. And to be honest, I'm going to go back to the question a little bit, because, growing up in Minneapolis and seeing the things that I did see even when it came to, the communities that we lived in, they were really hard on individuals, but didn't want to, I'll say, do the right thing. And because it was more about, well, we're tough on this community, and now it's like we want to be easy because they were so tough. We had that when Murderapolis came around, it was the drugs on war. I know a lot of people don't want to talk about when the Sumner projects closed over north. Where did those people go? A lot of them went out to suburbs. A lot of them went to southern Minnesota. They went to northern Minnesota, like Duluth, St. Cloud. So you started to see more influx of inner city going into Rochester or Albert Lee. That's why, honestly, we see that what we're seeing now is because during them early years of early 90s and the middle 90s to the early 2000s, they were being tough on crime, and they were being too tough. Now they're being lenient. And we're paying the effect of it because we were too tough on crime to the wrong people and not the right people. And now that there are people out here committing crime, we're giving them slaps on the wrist.
And there's a balance there, because you want to give the person a chance to change their ways or whatever, or realize that there's a consequence, because some people aren't going to change their ways, right? So it's just like saying, hey, there's going to be a consequence, and does the consequence meet the crime? Just like if my kid steals $5 from me versus $1,000, if I have it in a drawer, there's probably going to be different consequences, right? I mean,
that's the one thing that always bothered me, right? Is like I look at a lot of these situations now that people are like getting probation, or they're getting certain cases dismissed because of this or that. And I'm like, damn, y'all didn't see all them wrongs being done back then. So why do you see it wrong now? Because the eras have changed. The generations, because I'll tell you right now, is that like my grandpa, my grandma, that was a man and a woman only. Man,
they're pushing like AI in the next generation of policing. Okay, how do you get there? You have to get there through a certain way. What would be that way? The crime has to get so bad that people beg for it.
right?
Or civil unrest. Civil unrest is a big way that they push these things, with the use of drones, with the use of jamming equipment, the microwave, whatever type weapons that they have to disperse crowds,
Right.
was used.
Hell,
I can go down the list. These things happen. They happen on U.S. soil. I don't agree with that. So, but that's how it happens, is that's that slow push. On the judicial side, they're already looking at the implementation of AI and whatever else. And so when people say, oh, yeah, we need to be tough on crime again, there'll be a middle ground of, okay, well, why don't we just use AI? And that use of AI, though, is only as good as your inputs. And you can how to put it this way, using AI as a tool shouldn't be using AI without any critical thinking attached to it. On the human side,
Right.
you know what I mean? And we shouldn't. You don't have the right to violate my rights, and I don't have the right to violate your rights. And so, like with the people that are serial violators of other people's rights, and especially like on the sexual side,
Right.
hey, they have rights too, but their rights do not supersede the rights of others. So maybe they need to be institutionalized. You go down the list on that, but I don't think that you should allow them to have more victims, knowing that there's something with the way that they're wired that they don't think like normal people,
Right.
and that's acceptable.
And to be honest, I think that's noticeable right away. And I think that's one of the things that they do miss is that, like, you put a stray dog back into a community with no restrictions or no kind of regulations. And what do you think is going to happen? That a dog is going to be a dog and it's only going to get worse. And that's what we're seeing. And to be honest, a lot of people, like elected officials, they like to pinpoint certain things, but not the shit that's actually happening in their communities because it's starting to happen. So I'm about to get up out of here for the day though. And before I get up out of here though, I want Robert to finish off whatever he can have the final thoughts. And
Oh, just like the reason I'm saying that they're planning these types of things is because they are, and I can show you Chaz can tell you I can show you the stuff back to um like the Horizons Project, one Minnesota, like the 70s. Okay, so if they're planning things for the future of the state or the future of your city, I think that you deserve a say in that, and you deserve to have a logical say. Whether it be for they're trying to do the multifamily zoning stuff. We also have to look at sewers, water, streets, like that. There's some logical things behind it. And I think that the people deserve a say and that they deserve to be respected. Because I think that the people are more important than corporations with special interest. That's all. So let's get together and let's do this thing.
I wanted to show your YouTube page because you do have some very informative information on here. So if you want to explain a little bit about your YouTube, I'll scroll through it if you want me to.
Oh, definitely. I have quite a few different videos on there. The Minneapolis Confidential one, I need to go back through and do another episode on that. I was reading through City Pages did something that is now scrubbed from the internet completely.
Right.
Even
Damn,
from
really?
it's in the Wayback Machine, but you have to have the exact web address. You can't find it any other way.
Oh shit.
And it was off of there for a little bit when they had that hack or whatever.
Okay.
So, but I have it downloaded. But it goes through the history of Minneapolis up to through the 90s and saying basically, hey, if there's been this corruption, maybe we should deal with the corruption. Wow, what a concept. You know what I mean? That's it, dude. Maybe we should come together and actually make change. One person can make change, two people can make twice as much change. You know what I mean? And if we can show up to these huge rallies, man, we can write our city council members, we can write our elected officials letters, we can call them, we can stop by their office.
Right.
Do it for things like, hey, judges should have some sort of accountability for their actions if they're just like goofballs, not following orders or just doing whatever. You know what I mean? Same thing with cops that just do whatever and falsify evidence and whatever else, right? Same thing with your city council member that's getting bribes from a buddy over here. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter what it is like that. If it's corruption, we should call it out. So let's do that together. We the people, let's make the change. That's it.
Damn, that was quite a hell of a show today. And I hope that everybody understands, and go to Robert's YouTube page. There is a lot of things that are on there that explain what you're seeing today. I know a lot of people don't want to look at it, but they need to. And with that being said, I'll be back tomorrow. Same time, same place. Win or fail, freedom or jail, heaven or hell. Wish me well. And here is A Gift and a Curse by Don Tripp. And I will see y'all tomorrow. Same time, same place. Be there, be square.
Yeah. You know, I normally don't have much to say. I normally just let the music speak for itself. You know, a nigga been up, a nigga been down. We been everywhere in between. And all this shit, you know what they say, all that glitters ain't gold. We been running this shit, we been running for quite some time. Shit, all this shit look fun, and it's a give and a take, it's pros and cons. I guess you could say it's a gift and a curse. For lack of better words.
Lido. Making a living from a microphone come with microaggressions. One of the many downsides of putting your life on these records. I got a life outside of rapping. Niggas act like they come second. So I might sound aggressive, replying when you write me a message. Guess it's the price of fame, never be quite the same. They say I love you, Lido. You might not like Jermaine. Everybody switched up on me. I got the right to change. Niggas know I got shit to lose. Get to playing all types of games. Indictments came a few times. Yeah, I fought though. Advise you not to do crime. They say crime pays, but it costs more. Also, you want peace of mind? Yeah, I thought so. Some days I gotta keep from crying cause me and Dolph was close. I don't really fuck with talk shows nor interviews. Wanna interrogate me on YouTube. I was in the streets, ain't got shit to prove. If you knew the truth, it's a lose-lose. I was really in the headlines, reporting live, I'm talking news crew, talking top story, and that's paranoia, getting all this money and you can't enjoy it. How you handling problems, I ain't